Your guests set the vibe of your wedding day. Happy guests equals epic wedding. Here's our 6 tips to make sure that your guests are happy through and through. Ciao, I'm Lucy, wedding planner and founder of Lista. I'm here to give you advice and inspiration to make sure that your Italian wedding planning is fun, carefree and full of joy. If you haven't already, please subscribe below to make sure you get our videos every single week. It's a bit of an unwritten rule that happy guests equals epic wedding, and I can say it myself. I've been to hundreds of Italian weddings, and the difference between weddings isn't about decorations, it isn't even about the food, it's the difference between how the guests are feeling, and that is set by their experience and how fun it's been and easy it's been to get to Italy. It's also set by the couple and how they feel. If you consider your guest's experience from the start of your planning and make it easy for them, I promise it makes it easier for you as well, and you will have a more stress-free and a lower pressured wedding. Let's be honest, people are flappy. Whether they're 6 or 60, people get tired, hungry, fed up. Let's consider these 6 steps to make sure that that doesn't happen to your guests. The first thing is wedding location. Really obvious, but can your guests actually get to your wedding easily? Are there direct flights? Are they at good times? Are they then going to be able to travel to your accommodation easily? All of these things will factor into them arriving and having a good experience of your wedding. The second thing is having events around your wedding. Often when you're bringing in lots of people from different places, it's such a good idea to get people together before the wedding. It not only helps you because you get to talk to everybody and get to see them taking the pressure off the wedding day, they get to know each other as well. So you haven't got that kind of slightly awkward thing where people come to a wedding and don't know anyone. They will have met people the night before the wedding, they will have got on, they would have found things in common, and then they'll have people to go and talk to the next day. If your friends and family haven't met before, it's such a good idea to do this. I'm often asked about how to control drinks at these pre-events. Now, people are adults and I don't really think you can control drinks. One thing you can do is obviously end the event early, so something like having an aperitif where you have drinks from 6 till 8 and then people go and get their own dinner. That's quite a good way to kind of tie the party down, end it, and then people will go off and do what they want. Some people will go to bed, some people won't. There will always be hungover people at a wedding, at your wedding. Third thing is to provide transport for your guests. Transport on a wedding day is a must. In Italy, almost anywhere, transport is pretty unreliable, and for your guests to have to try and find taxis and things like that, it's probably not going to be that enjoyable for them, and it might add more stress. They might get weird quotes, they might not know if the taxi's actually going to turn up. If you provide transport for them to get to your wedding and home from your wedding, it will save a whole lot of hassle for everybody. Transport in Italy is quite unreliable, especially late at night. So on your wedding day, I think transport is a must. Making sure your guests can get to your wedding and home from your wedding is key to their enjoyment and your stress levels staying low. You can do this by simply booking buses that go and collect everybody from their locations and drop them back at the end of the night. To make this as easy as possible and as low cost as possible for you, it's a really good idea to advise guests on where they should stay. And that comes to my 4th point, communication. Communication is key. Making sure your guests know what is going on, how to get to your wedding, and what's actually going to happen once they're there will make their lives a lot easier. Now, we can't guarantee that guests will actually always read the communications that you send, and the likelihood is that as you get closer to your wedding, they will be more interested in it. So, coming from a marketing and comms background, I'm going to recommend that you have a bit of a comms plan. This simply means that at certain points in your wedding planning, you have some communications plan to update your guests. This could look like a year or 13 months before your wedding, you send out your invites or your save the date, and you link this to a wedding website where you have some of the top line key information. For example, if you're going to have 3 days of events, you let them know that you're going to be in Italy for those 3 days and they're invited to multiple events. They can start to plan their trip, think about the dates they're going to be there, and they can even start to look into flights and accommodation if they're that type of guest. There will be other guests that won't think about your wedding until a few months before, and there should be comms for them too. It's a good idea to recap the same communications that you sent a long time ago, but it's likely that at this point you'll have a lot more detail that you can share, and some of your guests are going to want to know that detail. Things like transport, timings of buses, points of collection, all of those ins and outs. Sharing that with your guests will mean that they know what's going on, they feel calm, and you probably will too. The fifth thing is communicating payments with your guests. Now, some of your guests may be staying at your location. You may have accommodation on site that you're charging your guests for. Being really clear about the price of that and when they need to pay it up front will again keep them calm. People can save if they need to. Everything will stay on track, and you'll know that you're going to get that income when you need it for the cash flow of your wedding. Often when you book a venue, you actually have to pay 30% up front, and obviously you're unlikely to have that income from guests at that point. And finally, number 6 is food and drink. As I said at the start, whether you're 6 or 60, you can get hangry, and people love to know what they're going to eat and drink. So if you've got a venue that's like a hotel or a slightly catered venue, that's brilliant because you've probably got a bar or a restaurant on site where guests can get what they want at any point. And actually, I'd really recommend prioritising venues like this because it really takes the pressure off the couple, knowing that everything is there, guests can get what they want when they need it, and there's no reliance on them. However, lots of venues are self-catered. And this is where the kind of conundrum comes in. How much should you cater for your guests? I always recommend that you should cater for at least a breakfast or a light breakfast. So make sure that the fridge is stocked with normal provisions, a bit of milk, some breakfast options. You could even have some fresh bread or croissants delivered every day, tea and coffee, really simple, but just making sure that when everyone gets up, they've got something there to eat. They can then decide to go out for the day. They might go out and have their lunch or dinner, or they can go to the supermarket and stock things ready to eat the rest of the day. I think you'll find that if you book lunches and dinners for everybody, you should either coordinate that, so you should know that people are definitely going to attend those before you book them, or you might find that people want to go out and about and they don't want quite so much organised fun, and you might find that you've booked things that don't actually get used. So again, it's all about communication and just learning from your guests what they're going to actually want and need, and kind of providing what you think is going to suit that. When it comes to food and drink on a wedding day, again, I'd always recommend a breakfast or a brunch. It's a really good idea to make sure everyone's got a full stomach ready for the day ahead. And often, as you know, Italian wedding ceremonies are quite a lot later in the day, so providing a light lunch, even just an antipasti, some stuff in the fridge, is a really good idea. Obviously, you've got a massive meal that evening, but it doesn't start till quite late. The things I would always recommend, if possible, is to have an open bar for your wedding. Most caterers will include this as part of their package, and when you're planning your budget at the start, it's really nice to factor this in if it's possible. Your guests have travelled a really long way, and having all the food and drink included in your wedding day for them is really nice. I'd say it's not expected that you're to cater for people for the other events. So if you have a pizza night, for example, if you're putting on catering, I think the expectation is that it will be free and you will pay for it, unless you communicate this up front. Some couples I've witnessed have charged their guests for these events, but they've communicated it really early on and they've included it as an RSVP. So it's an optional event where people can choose to pay something really quite minimal to contribute to the cost, and it just means everybody can get together again. It's just an alternative perhaps to going out to a restaurant where you'd actually spend quite a lot more money. So there you have it. The 6 ways to make sure that your guests have an excellent experience at your wedding, and therefore the vibe of your wedding stays calm and fun. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, where in future we'll cover even more detail about how to look after your guests, and come and join our Facebook group, which is full of over 700 couples who are having conversations about all these sorts of things every single day. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.